So let's dream it. Don't give it up now. Dream it. Don't give it up.
That's
cool. Yeah.
Okay, so how far are you into the live action adaptation? Oh, actually, yeah. How far are you into the live action adaptation? And also, what sort of information do you have about One Piece overall, in terms of in story wise?
At least to the rest of that, it's just been nuggets of different arcs that have gone through, like, over the course of the story, and especially over the course of the past couple of decades that the show has actually, or at least the anime and the manga has been around. Because I was going back on different other pieces of pirate media or live action pirate media through the rest of it, like that I've seen in the span of me getting into anime in general too, because it was like my entire relationship to One Piece is basically a handful of episodes that were on YTV, like for the 4Kids dub.
Yayo.
And then when I was getting into anime late 2011, like early 2012, I was watching episodes of Bleach, One Piece, and Naruto at the time, weekly
peak.
as they were going through, and I was jumping into the rest of it completely blind like an idiot. So it was just kind of like, I knew these were the biggest three, so what they were happening like inside of the stories, I decided to just jump on in. And I think it was Bleach was in its final Fullbringer arc. Naruto Shippuden was Naruto was training his Sage mode before the Pain invasion, and then I don't have as much experience as the names of the arcs for One Piece, but it was basically the Fisherman's Island or the Fisherman Village, where there's a oversized fish princess, and I can't remember the name of it.
Oversized fish princess. So that's like all the way. That's pretty. That is like not Fishman Island. Fishman Island is different. Yeah, that's like post time skip arc. That's like way.
Yeah. It was definitely post time skip. But it was I didn't stick around for too long, but there were like a couple of weeks where it's like I would chime in, and it's like they're all underwater inside these air bubbles because, of course, like apparently Devilford guys can't swim.
Yeah,
I think it was the first time that Luffy's Conqueror's Hockey, or he might have. That was the first time he showed it off. Right. Maybe it's like
officially in canon. Yeah, that's the first time. So like, I think that was the name of the arc is Fisherman Island. But anyways, that's like way, way, way deep in the series.
And that was 2012.
Yeah, 2012. So like, so that arc is like right after the time skip, after like everybody like comes back and like, we're the fresh new crew, we're coming back, we're getting the gang back together, and it's basically just showing off. It's basically like the arc that shows off like what they've been doing in the past whatever amount of time. I think it's kind of a throwaway arc. I understand like what the purpose of it is, but like it's not as compelling to me as like maybe some of the previous arcs in One Piece. Which brings us to the beginning. Setting sail for romance, the dawn of romance.
Because it's really interesting considering that I know the pedigree of One Piece. I know that as the years go by, at some point it's like I know I'm going to be getting into it, and it's either going to be the manga or the anime or both. And it's always been a consistent bit where it's just kind of like, okay, maybe if Oda at some point like says, hey, guess what? This is the final arc, or I'm like 90% of the way, or he's got 100, 150 chapters left in him. Like that's probably the only time I'm just going to be like, okay, time to binge, time to settle this up.
Bro, you can't catch up on like 30 years worth of anime in like 1 year. There's no way.
And that's what One Piece is for. That's what the manga. It's a lot quicker to consume the manga in that case through the rest of it. It was either before One Piece existed, odds are I thought I would probably just read the manga and the highlights of the fights of specific arcs and moments that I feel would be elevated with sound and motion. I would probably like go and like watch bits and pieces of that manga's arc in anime form, but then just jump back to the rest of it. But now that One Piece exists, it might just be something that I just jump into there.
Yeah.
Up to the point where it runs out of content and then like spring in the manga. It sounds like a very blasphemous way of thinking, but to be fair, it's a lot of stuff.
Because, I think it's completely reasonable given like the length of the series as a whole right now. I mean, my partner right now is went from like episode 1 all the way up to we are now into the 400s. We're at Marineford, which is like the Giga arc. So like all the payoffs like happening now, and it's like, oh, it's good. I think somewhere around in like Marineford and post Marineford is like when the Toei effect happens, where they start stretching out the source material across more episodes per manga chapter, and it feels a lot more sluggish to watch. So I think at that point, I would start reading the manga a little bit more. I would be more persuaded to read the manga rather than just watch the anime, and then pick out the key episodes or key events to watch. I'd argue that like even watching the first 300 episodes of One Piece are pretty good, animation wise, tonality, like, and also just like ease of watching. I think like okay, so like in watching, so like I don't know where should I begin with this. I think that in the anime, I find a lot of enjoyment of seeing. I don't know, it's a very easy watch for the first 300 episodes. Like things are nice and quiet. It's not super dialogue heavy, but it's just fun. You can jump into it without having to think too much about it. But it allows a lot of room for the world to be built out. There are a lot of like.
Yeah, quite the dichotomy in that sense where it's just like, man, it's some of the easiest 300 episodes you're going to watch. It's like, oh, hold on.
Honestly, though, like you can leave it on the background because like the characters, like they're always going to say each other's names like constantly, and you can kind of just like pick up. It's like a soap opera effect where like everybody's roles are going to be explained or are implied already, and the story is otherwise easy to get into. Yeah, it's not too complicated, not too dialogue centric. It's more like a lot of these characters are espousing them about their perspectives of life and the moral alignment. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, the first 300 episodes, golden. I love him. I think in watching the first episode of One Piece in the anime versus the live action, I noticed that the levity that's included in the earlier arcs, they're just really fun. It's just like really light, really goofy, a little bit more on the camp, and it's just like, I can just accept it for what it is. Like they're not trying to be cool, they're not trying to be like super grounded and serious, and they can just be. The series can take its own identity and just do whatever. And I think that's the strength of One Piece. It's about like strong proclamations of emotion, hence why Eiichiro Oda like had his one shot called Romance Dawn as a reference to the Romantic era, on which a lot of these pirates or these stories or the folklore of the pirates originated, where, you had privateers and buccaneers get out there on sea, trying to make a name for themselves and like feeling like, just like espousing their grand ambitions for the world and what they wanted to do. That's the romance in Romance Dawn. Watching the anime just captures a lot of that. They have a lot of these like warm, grand, boisterous sort of orchestral arrangements for the soundtrack, and it just feels like it's a fun time. Like horn sections, flutes. I don't know. Like there's a really like personal charm to the soundtrack that I feel is missing the live action adaptation, because I feel like the live action adaptation really just wants to make itself feel grounded and serious.
Because that was always going to be the concerning thing, like leading into the rest of it, considering that most live action pirate media towards the rest of it was already. I do kind of find it in that same vein where they try to balance the serious with the comical, like through the rest of it, between the Adventures of Tintin, between Treasure Planet, the Goonies, of course the Pirates of the Caribbean stuff, like coming from where it's not like I'm so much inside of like a general audience that hasn't watched a lot of anime. It's like I've seen too much for my own good. What I'm always curious about seeing, especially with this kind of live action adaptation, because if there's one of the only things that I do know about One Piece is its tone, but outside of the grand declarations of emotion and the dynamic set pieces that they do involve towards the climax of a lot of the arcs that people talk about, it is just that kind of goofiness that protrudes through the rest of it. And for me, that's what I was curious how the live action was going to be tackling that kind of stuff.
I mean, the live action I find follows a lot more closely to the manga than it does to the anime counterpart, which I think makes sense. And also, then like in terms of a live action adaptation, I want the staff involved to have their own shot at an interpretation of the story, because I don't exactly want it one for one, right? But I want it to be able to capture a lot of those same feelings. Does it feel like One Piece? And in whatever way you want it to like lean towards. I think in terms of live action adaptation, there are a lot of things you can do, like interspersing character moments with more dialogue because you have the screen time to do so. I don't know. And because the mediums are different, they're inherently going to just have different properties where, in the anime, it's really, really easy to like get really wild with character designs and like exaggerated emotions and expressions. Whereas in live action adaptation, it's a little bit harder to like pull it off without it coming off as very, very campy. But I find that even in the live action adaptation, I would prefer it to be campier. I would want them to just really lean into it and embrace, you know, the boisterous, silly nature that Luffy has in tackling a lot of these serious issues, where he's just gung ho, gonna go in there, guns blazing, and figure it out.
Yeah, because that's honestly one of the things that I did enjoy about it, and that's all surrounding Inaki Godoy. Because I will admit, it's as considering that I don't have as much of a personal connection to Monkey D, or at least the animated character himself. It's the tone that surrounds Inaki and his portrayal of Monkey, which kind of just does a phenomenal job in settling that kind of goofy, wacky sort of antics when, like, based on all the scenarios that are driven by Luffy himself. Like, whenever he's on screen and reacting, because the only reason why any of the overly serious stuff like goes through and the desperate in tone towards the really serious bits and a lot of the stuff that tries to bounce off of it, Inaki, as you know, as this character being incredibly rubber, bounces off of all of the seriousness incredibly well, like with his portrayal of Luffy. Because whenever he's on screen trying to go back and forth with a lot of the stuff, he does get a little, like, sometimes at the points where he does get serious, it doesn't necessarily feel like it is the most natural, but seeing him in his portrayal of Luffy, like, just completely and utterly be either oblivious or nonchalant to all of the quote-unquote like super serious campy stuff that's in the background, I feel like that's what makes it work in that semblance. So it's not something where it's just a show that's taking itself incredibly seriously because there's pirates inside of this, which means it has to be a drama, and it's like, no, it doesn't. Especially not with these kinds of characters that you got rolling around, especially not when Monkey D. Luffy is going to be your protagonist leading through the majority of these scenarios. He just did a phenomenal job, especially like bringing everybody else underneath his wing towards the rest of it in that kind of same vein. Not probably to the one where it's like, if I had to compare him to like any other live action, not necessarily anime adaptation, but character in general, he did give me a couple of vibes of like early Ted Lasso, where it's just his kind of infectious optimism that bleeds into all like the seriousness of every character, where it's just like Nami and her dark past, Roronoa Zoro, where he is the demon pirate hunter towards the rest of it, and he sails the seas looking for bounties to become the best swordsman. And then he injects himself towards the rest of it, and he does a really good job inside of this live action adaptation, to the point where that kind of infectious optimism that he brings towards the rest of his crew, which then also gets amplified by Usopp, just like makes a really good just tone and feel towards the rest of the guys that you got going around the show.
I can only speak to the first episode of the live action adaptation. I'm hoping that in the future episodes, I'm going to see a little bit more of the dynamics and like also deviations from the source. Like, I don't think I want like an exact one for one. I want the characters to be fleshed out in their own interpretations. And I don't know. I can only speak to what I've seen. I think the live action adaptation is in the right direction. I think that the staff they're really trying hard to capture some of that magic, but I feel like it's missing out on some of the execution. I think there are some dialogue scenes which I felt could have feel a little stiff or very heavy on like exposition, or just require a lot of I don't know. They're really just delivered, like spoon feeding you the story, as opposed to allowing you the room to interpret it for yourself. And it's kind of, it's, I don't know.
Yeah, Zoro's being also kind of like a little over serious, half to the point where I can't even hear like half of the shit he's saying, because it sounds like he's in a constant state of mumble.
It's like the Batman effect, right? Like, where Batman's always serious. But like in anime, I mean, in anime and in manga, Zoro is also goofy sometimes, because he's, like in the anime, there are always these gags that these characters have, like Zoro getting lost all the time, or or even like Sanji being a womanizer.
You hope that they, like, not necessarily the womanizing part, but at least like like getting that would honestly be kind of hilarious if they bring that consistently get back into the case, where it's like Zoro has probably one of the worst senses of direction in anime history, or at least that's one of the only two things I know about Zoro, is that he's got 3 swords which he carries one in his mouth, and that he is probably one of the worst like navigatory like characters inside of animation, period.
Yeah. So it's nice that all the characters have their own gimmicks and shticks, and they get to get reused in different ways as the series progresses. It's always like a nice callback to be like, yeah, of course this would happen to you. But over a long running series, it's a fun little quirk or trait, which I don't mind, and I hope that I can see a little bit more of it coming through to the live action adaptation.
I still don't know how they did it, but somehow they made his Santoryu, like his 3 sword wielding style. I was so expecting it to look dog shit. I was like so expecting him to be holding that sword in his mouth and being like, this is like campy in the worst kind of way, even though you know that's his character, that's his gimmick. But somehow, after he puts on the bandana, after he like settles up, it's like, oh shit, this works in this world. Like this actually works in this story. Yeah.
I think in the way they directed, I guess like when he was approached by Baroque Works early on in the live action adaptation, which shouldn't happen, but yeah, it was interesting. I think what they nailed right were a lot of the key poses for a lot of his attacks, like his onigiri and his tora, something along the lines. But like just in his stances and how he holds his swords at the finish of a slash is always like, oh, okay, yeah, I see it now. I see it. It doesn't even have to be like a full shot of him like swinging the swords in his mouth or what have you. It's just like if you can get on the key stances, it sells me the motion.
Those specific frames, those freeze frames that if you like put that towards the rest of it and then stylize it, it's like, oh, it's jumping off the page.
Right. And it's also like there are a lot of like techniques that, because if you watch the earlier episodes of One Piece, that's exactly how they did it, because animation budget was running a little thin. So they had to do a lot of like panning shots, zooms, voiceovers in order to add
stretch out
to add life to these otherwise still frames. But it was enough. It sells me the story, and I'm happy for it. In fact, I really, really miss that. Like less is more kind of thing, where maybe the visuals don't need to be as like intense, but you can add sound effects. You can add like music that brings up the tone, or more animated voices in order to elevate the scenes, and that's enough for me, and I'm perfectly okay with it. Even like and leading to that effect, you could also use in live action adaptation more dialogue, narration, I don't know, just different ways of delivering the story. I don't know. I think the staff trying to do the series justice, just execution is kind of lacking. I don't know. I'm not sure.
You can still feel that passion behind the rest of it. Like they all wanted to make this project work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the set pieces pieces look really good. The character designs and costume designs look good. Maybe some of the delivery could be a little bit different. And another part of I haven't seen maybe the rest of the live action adaptation, but like also in how they handle the spirit of the series. So I think a lot of, and also like some of the ongoing themes in One Piece, I think, is found family, because all of these characters come from diverse backgrounds and all flowing through with a yearning to find community, to find connection, and to find a crew, and characters you can trust. And I really would like them to, slow the series down where they need to, in order to have these characters have these backstory moments, and having these sincere moments.
Yeah, it definitely seems like they need, at the very least, they want, or at least like through AMVs and through YouTube shorts and videos that have been popped up like over the past 11 years, like since I've gotten into anime, where it's just I haven't seen it, but I know the iconic moments. I know the pieces that might be able to happen inside of the 8 episodes that we have in the first season, and what could possibly go beyond if they do decide to, well, not decide, if they have the opportunity to make a second season. But it's definitely those that will be like leading in through the rest of it, where it's just it is always those individual moments that are also going to like have the opportunity to make the show shine on its own, which is definitely going to be something to be watching out for towards the rest of it into the future.
Mm-hmm.
I do like, to be fair, in terms of like introducing all of these larger than life pirates with huge belly bounties like on their heads, I do like all the examples that they've been able to go to, which seems like it's going to be something that they do like leading into the future, like having their own wanted poster like scroll across the screen and then have them take care of it in their own ways, like between Goldie Roger, between of course I can't remember her name considering that she was only
Nami.
on screen for about 5 minutes. Well, not even Nami. Bellamy, was it? Or like the big mace wielder, like she was there for at least a little bit.
Big mate. Oh, Elvita.
Elvita, that's it.
Yes.
So Elvita was there at the end of episode 1. Like you had Buggy basically just like swipe the thing away from him. It's like, okay, get this thing out of my face. I don't want it inside of my inside of my.
But, and like just having Buggy be that sort of character, it makes sense. It probably didn't happen like in manga or in canon, but like it just makes sense that those characters would behave in that way, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for interpretations of the characters. I don't know, like I think ending it at Arlong Park was a good time frame for them to cover within like an 8-episode series, but they're trying to adapt like 50 episodes at this point into 8 episodes. So I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm wondering whether or not like giving them an additional episode for a little bit more time so they can have some room to breathe would have been a little bit better.
Yeah, it's not as bad as you would think, considering that if we're talking about like 8 episodes here with an hour-long runtime, take away OPs and EDs and through the rest of it, then you recaps like in general, then that probably gives you 25 anime episodes to time-wise to the rest of it, but it is the same. That is the major challenge that they have to do for because if they end in Arlong, I assume that's when all 5 are there, I guess.
At least okay, so
the main
Nami,
5,
Nami, Luffy, Sanji, Zoro, at least those guys, and Usopp, of course. The main 5 are there, and then you get Chopper and everybody else after they've entered the Grand Line.
But then at the very least, it seems like towards the rest of that, it would be enough of a. It seems like it's enough of a time frame to get the first 5 together and like create a bond that'll be strong enough to last them the entire series. Or at least that's what at least that's what I hope is the case by the end of the final arc.
Let's see. What sort of takeaways could I find from watching the live action adaptation? Okay, so
what did you think about? Or sorry, I'll let you go in with that piece.
Go for it.
I was going to ask, like, in terms of, there's only so much that you can do with, at least in the first episode, introducing Zoro and his swords. For me, mostly it's his nonchalant fighting style through the rest of it, where it does seem like his live action version is just too cool to be in any room or any scenario that does not involve killing pirates. So like the nonchalance that he's able to show, that's also something that I did really enjoy throughout the rest of this, is that it's the choreography that they're able to like implement with the backgrounds, like make Nami like at least a force on her own, where it's like she's got her wits, she's got her navigational skills, but she also has the opportunity to fend for herself in the midst of combat. But having that opportunity through the rest of it, it was interesting to see Luffy's powers, because that's what I was curious. Where it's an odd, uncanny valley to like fail that in, because his powers are cartoony. Like I've seen him whip his body around with the gum gum fruit, and like just have that opportunity to basically just be able to either like inflate or like stretch any part of his body to that excessive degree. But I didn't know how they would be able to make that feel down to earth, but also cartoony in the same way. And I think they did a good job.
I think it was okay. I think it was okay. I think with the CG nowadays, it's pretty passable. And I noticed that they chose to be very selective of when they put up the CG. They probably put it in areas where you couldn't scrutinize it, or the screen's moving fast enough that you can't like nitpick at it.
Because that's what I was kind of concerned, because the first pistol that he throws is in the dead of night, and it's incredibly shaded. And I'm thinking, so how is that going to be in light? Right. Which, to be fair, once they got to it in light, it actually didn't look too bad. Like in that
Mhm.
case,
Yeah. One thing that I also noticed that like a lot of the scenes were shot at night, and it's really really dark, and it's like in 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 anime or in manga, I guess manga doesn't really matter, but like at least in anime, it's very clear like what's going on. But if everything's shot in the dark, then it kind of like loses part of the charm. I don't know. That's my personal take on it.
it's been
Um,
very dark. I will admit, like in episodes like 2 and 3 that I've seen, is like, why is everything just so bloody,
dark, bland,
like in the
and
middle of night? And it's
right.
just, I don't know. Like I'm not really enjoying the rest of that. But at least like for the first, what I'm glad is that in the first episode, basically, thankfully, all you get is Elvita's ship, and then him and what's his name, Kobe, like
Mhm,
sitting on the docks, like just talking to each other about their dreams. And it's like,
mhm,
okay, that moment in particular, it's like
mhm.
that's fine to just
Yeah.
settle back and calm and prepare for the next day. Like having that shot in the dark with all the stars in the sky, it's like, oh, that's really good to like
Mhm,
show the connection between the two of them.
mhm.
So that's why I'm kind of glad, like in the rest of that first episode, almost everything is in broad daylight.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, just they built the setup, so you may as well use it. And I don't know, it's just fun colors, fun colors. Get them out there, get them out there to see and having these fun adventures. Vibrant, I guess, set pieces is like what I want to see.
I
So
do like the
Titan.
fact that, like, towards the rest of it, like in broad daylight, you want the colors on the uniforms and the characters themselves to pop too, but then you're not
Mhm,
necessarily hiding any of the pieces or like anything behind towards where any of the characters are being shown. Like
right,
specifically the Marine commander with the axe arm in the first episode towards that
Axan
point where it's
Morgan.
just
Yeah.
SM Morgan, yeah. He looked well lived enough in the world where it's just, I
Mhm.
don't know, considering like most of it just comes off of, whenever I think of XN Morgan, I think of the Nun Piece episodes that I watched. Like that was also another thing that I ended up watching before even jumping into One Piece
Oh,
entire.
it's not
Like
far off.
basic, like it's between that, it's between the Four Kids dub, and it's literally Nun Piece by Purple Eyes Wonderful. And
Yeah.
so just most of the episodes being focused around him, like almost like there's, I was thinking, good God, I'm just gonna laugh my ass off as soon as this dude comes on screen.
Mhm.
And surprisingly enough, for a man that's just got an iron jaw and an axe for a hand, he felt like he belonged in the world towards the rest of it they were presenting. And it was a really good job to like make somebody that chaotic like fit in that case.
Maybe armless, but he's not harmless. Uh
Definitely not.
So like so another thing about tagging on to maybe like the talk that Kobe and Luffy had on the ship at night about their dreams and aspirations. Those are the moments that I really enjoy most, and I think it's where One Piece shines. Small character moments, and again, alluding back to the themes of romance, of proud declarations of like what do you want to do with your life, what do you want to aspire towards, and to unabashedly present them to the world. I think those are what I would like the series to focus on thematically, right? To not be afraid of making those declarations and just yeah, it's I don't know. It's just a nice message to get across about pursuing your wants and desires and supporting those around you to make those things happen. Because you know we have our protagonist here who's making probably one of the grandest declarations. You know that he's going to be the best, the king of the pirates, right? The very head honcho, top man.
And he's
Um,
only been at sea for a couple of weeks.
Couple weeks, right? But that's fine. It's fine to dream big and just to enjoy the journey to get there. And Luffy is perfectly okay. He does not care who laughs at him. He doesn't, he's willing to just, live his life the way he wants to. And I think that's very freeing. So yeah,
You can
more
laugh at
character
me.
modes like
Yeah.
that. I want.
You can laugh at me, but don't laugh at my dreams.
Yeah.
And even worse, don't you dare laugh at my friends' dreams either.
Yeah. So those are good. I don't know. There's okay, so another thing that also like crossed my mind is like about tropes within characters and like what their shtick and gimmick is and like how they present themselves. Like when you talk about Zoro being always so nonchalant and serious and cool all the time, that's part of it, yeah. But I also it's also like to make the distinction when the characters have their switch turned on. Like when Zoro puts on his bandana and things like go real serious. Like he means it, right? I think that there's small little like character gimmicks like that like show us like, okay, this is like they're presenting differently now.
These are the signals. Yeah.
Signals, right? Or even like small times when like Luffy is defending the little guy in the room or whomever, and he suddenly takes a slightly more serious tone. It pans away from his face, and like he just punches somebody like across the room. Like moments like that, I think are good, right? And switching the tone really quickly.
Was there any like surprising like jump cut or like any piece inside of the first couple of episodes that you think they should have let in as like an introduction, or do you think like they're doing a well enough job to condense that entire piece into a digestible 1 hour chunk to introduce these main three?
So I think it's okay. I understand that they're trying to set multiple plot events in motion at the same time in order to, for the sake of screen time and pacing, which is fine. They introduce Luffy just on a ship getting picked up by, I think, I forget how it was.
Like, yeah. I think in the what is it? The first episode of anime was like basically same deal. He's in a barrel.
Alvida and Kobe find him. And then, Kobe gets rescued by Luffy from Alvida, and then they go off and find Zoro, because originally Alvida was looking for Zoro. You go from Zoro and Axe Hand Morgan into finding Nami, I think it is, as their navigator.
Because like Nami was on the same ship that Alvida was robbing.
Yes.
I think in the first episode, yeah. And so it's a way to condense it all, like to the point where it's like everybody's going to the same reason. Mm-hmm. And instead of Luffy going after somebody strong, because Alvida was mentioning Zoro by name, the fact that Luffy was in the bar in episode 1, at least in live action, it's like, wait a second, who is that guy?
Yeah,
damn, he's strong. I want that guy in my crew.
So the bar scene is like an anime. Sorry, the bar scene is like, to my knowledge, a live action original. Right. So they're trying to form the introduction points for both Nami and Zoro at the same time, which is fair. That's okay. I think it doesn't change very much, but I think it, like, I don't know. In the bar scene, Zoro gets an opportunity to show like that he is actually a really nice guy. So in anime, Zoro punches Helmeppo for being a douche to everybody in the town, and then in order to protect the townspeople from more bullying from Helmeppo and Axe Hand Morgan, he takes on their punishment for them on his behalf. So he goes in, gets captured on purpose for like a month or something like that, and then he's doing that to spare the townspeople of the wrath that they would incur. And that's where Luffy shows up to save him. So that's part of it. And then it's also getting streamlined. I think whatchamacallit, Nana gets introduced immediately after that arc.
Yeah, I think like something along like this is all for me. This is all like trying to piece together like stuff from One Piece towards the rest of it. Where it's like I think you see Nami get reintroduced when they meet Buggy and his guys in the anime. Mm-hmm. And so they see her, but like Nami is consistently. I think Nami like ties up Luffy for some reason, or it's just not the same reasons as the abridged does, but she is still like present towards the rest of it, and she's still looking for something that I believe like Buggy must have through the rest of it. But I don't know. Yeah, it's just trying to like merge the rest of like what happens in the first couple of episodes of One Piece towards the abridged. And how like prominent abridged stuff like was back in the early 10s towards the rest of it, when the copyright stuff wasn't completely breathing down the necks of every single YouTube creator in towards the rest of it. Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of fan content has gone by the wayside, but these are the times we're living the age of pirates now.
Literally. Yep.
Literally.
How do you think I watched this?
I'm hopeful that they're able to capture that feeling like I would watching the anime, and just adding to it. I'm not sure what more I could want from this, or how I could ask. Like if I had like a perfect world where I could have my needs met, I'm not even sure like how I would ask for it in capturing the feeling of One Piece, or at least like the live action adaptation of One Piece.
It's been quite the interesting like settle up where it's just everything leading into it where it's like, okay, I understand that the people in the production have the passion. Awesome. That's always been a case for every live action adaptation. It's like, oh, it's a really huge, popular Japanese title. It's like, yep, we've had those too and before, and they've come and gone. They've just been complete laughing stocks.
Yeah.
Like at the worst, laughing stocks, at the best, mediocre, which is something that nobody is ever going to touch. To like leading into the future and to the rest of it, it's just been incredibly tragic, especially over the past couple of years. In between Cowboy Bebop, in between Ghost in the Shell,
Yeah.
the closest we got towards the rest of that as of late would have been Battle Angel Alita, considering that it did have a positive reception towards the rest of it, which is more you can say towards like any of the other like live action products that have come out over the past couple of years. But it's for somebody it's easy to say for me, since my expectations were so below the floor for this adaptation. The fact that because of Luffy's demeanor, because of the way that they were able to juggle the serious, the campiness, the goofy, and the heartfelt tones towards the rest of it, at least after the first episode, was something that I was genuinely surprised by. And the fact that I've got a smile on my face and I'm laughing towards the rest of it as Inaki and Luffy and Emily Rudd as Nami and fucking Makenyu's like grumbling Zoro like drags himself across the screen. The fact that I'm still enjoying myself and having a good time with the adaptation, like inside of that kind of tone, is like more than I would have expected for this kind of adaptation, like at all.
I think so long as it's a fun series to watch and enjoy, like I don't mind it being different. I think at the end of the day, it's entertainment, and you know we just want to be entertained. So I don't mind it to be what it wants to be.
I would imagine is a little tough for 2 as well, considering that, at least because I know for you, this has been a series that you've been, you know,
I've been growing up on this for a long time.
Years, years and years.
We were back in the, like, I was watching this back in the age when like Kaizoku fan subs was still around, and that was like probably the peak of fan subbing. In its time, it was the peak. The fan subbing team cared so much about the lore and representing the characters. They even gave each of the characters their own particular font in combat to make them feel like, you know, when they're announcing their large named attacks, that it feels fun and bouncy. And like, I don't know, there's a level of care that you just can't get in subs nowadays, and I really wish that we got more of them.
It always did seem to be the case that whenever I saw a clip on YouTube of pieces of One Piece, that it was always going to be
the green Gomu Gomu no super bouncy, stretchy.
Like they would be
Luffy's attack.
It would either be like the words would expand or contract depending on the move that he was using, and like Sanji's would also be like this fire touched French sort of font towards any of his attacks, and like Zoro's would either be incredibly like simple italic, something that would go across the screen but then would be cut.
Yeah, it'd be like a cut slash. Like it had very angular, sharp points, like as though it was like a slash or a cut from a sword, or like indicative of like kanji. Those were like, it's just fun. It's just fun when the subbing community like keys on that, and they're like, oh yeah, this is and like even after Kaizoku fan subs like retired subbing One Piece after the official release came out, other fan sub groups adopted that same practice afterwards, anyways. Because it was just like a staple by that point. It was just like,
you couldn't take that away. No.
Yeah. I don't know. I really like a lot of things that One Piece does. Like things that are set up and getting paid off, like, you know, hundreds of episodes, if not like hundreds of chapters away. And they're still getting paid off to this day. And it's like, wow, this is cool. This is like leaving like the way that Oda adds breadcrumb trails to a whole bunch of places and leaves them open for fans to interpret and to speculate, which is also part of the fun. It's like we're invited along this adventure to figure it out for ourselves. And
and the live action probably couldn't have picked a better time, like towards at least One Piece's notoriety, like towards this time, considering that it's in the back quarter, like hopefully, like this might be the final quarter of the rest of it, or at least what social media tells me. And then it's just everything that I've heard that's happening in the Wano arc, which is the most recent one, where it's just all the clips that have just been posted online, like all of like the big action set pieces, and basically everything that what it seems like the studio and the country of Japan as a whole is like treating like this arc, because of course like the manga is still past that, but the fact that that arc in particular is getting animated to the degree that it is just like bringing so much notoriety and just attention to what the anime was doing or has been doing, at least like recently over the past year for that adaptation, only to cap it off with where it's just kind of like, okay, we're going to be bringing an entirely new audience to this franchise.
Yeah.
In the midst of which is either going to be a colossal failure, which is what they expected, but considering like what it's been doing as of late and the response and basically whatever critiques that people have been giving them, they haven't been saying that it, at the very least, the worst thing that you could do for like any kind of adaptation of One Piece is just be boring and be something that is so easily consumable that you will forget about it in a matter of time and just like completely disregard it as any kind of other schlock that's been coming out over the past couple of days. So the fact that people are still to this point watching it to the degree that it is and still having a good time with it and being entertained, especially when you're talking about a live action anime adaptation, that is a miracle in of itself.
Yeah. I mean, it's better to be memorable than boring. I'm looking forward to seeing what the team has to offer. So yeah, and also in like terms of adaptations across the arcs, animation styles change, studio staff changes for the animation team as well. And I've liked the format that Wano, at least of what I've seen of Wano's arc being animated, how they're approaching that, because now it feels like a seasonal anime where they're being more selective with animation and animating, like spending the time to animate where they need to animate and not always just like pumping out like your weekly episode all the time. I'm not sure if they're still doing that, but I don't know. The quality is definitely noticeable, has taken a noticeable improvement, which I'm appreciating.
Or at least the energy that people have been like injecting into like that arc in particular, where it seems like there's so much back-to-back, at least bangers, or at least what it looks like the arc is reaching a climax at that point, in the fact that just everybody is going off the wall towards the like all of the secrets that are apparently like being unveiled inside of this arc, and what is essentially being portrayed is just what it seems like, which unfortunately for me, I've already spoiled myself, but it's especially like what it seems like they're doing right now is probably the best timing that they could have done in tandem for something that would have the opportunity to, at least online, bring that more to a grander world stage and a grander line of entertainment towards the rest of it. I don't know. It's definitely been interesting to see, but if there was a franchise that you were going to do an adaptation for that and to do it justice, I'm kind of glad that they decided to stick with it on One Piece.
Yeah, that's good. There's just a lot to like about it. I think they could lean in a whole bunch of different ways. They could make it goofy. They could make it like more drama oriented. Like there are a lot of ways you could like flavor One Piece. Yeah, it could be serious. It could be goofy. It could be a drama. It could be like a moral. It uses its characters to show off some virtues of things that kids or youth might need in growing up, and I appreciate those parts. So yeah, it's good. I think if there's any like complaint that I would have over my experience in watching live action is that I would like more notable OSTs presented. Like I want those grand orchestral feelings coming up. Although I did note that I heard Shanks, Bink's sake getting played in the background when they were at the bar.
Damn.
That Luffy and Shanks were at. I was like, okay, that's a nice nod.
That's the kind of deep cuts that you're looking for, especially for somebody like that has been a long running fan of the series. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, no, like that is definitely like then whenever you have like those opportunities, just even though like in the timeline it doesn't make sense, but to just slip that in there into a like vein where it's like, oh shit,
Yeah.
Where is that tune coming from?
Yeah, so it's just like a nice nod for people who are fans of the series to like key in and be like, that's nice that they included that. But it's not so distracting that like it alienates the new audience that's coming onto this.
It's the best. It's the best kind of reference, or like self-referential cut. Like it was the same deal for me when I was watching Arcane for League of Legends, where it's just kind of
Yeah.
like they can throw like a throwaway thing like on screen, where it's just it's 1 or 2 second reference where you can have somebody be Leonardo DiCaprio in fucking Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's like pointing at the screen. Oh, like
Oh!
yeah,
Yeah.
I do that. Oh yeah, like orchestral notes are always just like a pleasant sight whenever they come around.
It's fun. And I also want like those scores to have like personality. I don't want it just to be like sitting in the background, not doing anything for the scene. Or I don't know. I want them to be like distinct, like great enough that I would listen to them on my own. I don't want it to feel like it's just a generic track that's getting played in the background just to fulfill a mood. It's more like this is a theme that like sparks like a scene in my mind, or this is a melody that like I can only remember with this key scene in the series, right? Those are the kind of like feelings that I want. I don't know.
I can only hope, like in the lead up to the rest of this, that they do.
I'm hoping that they
yes,
do like
specific
like
scenes
a
justice.
interpretation of like We Are, or like an opening theme, or like something like that.
Oh my god, it's it's always the meme status too. Like through the rest of it, it does a good job on its own. Like in the midst of it, depending on like what arc just gets drudged out of the ground. Like
Yeah.
basically, I don't know. It's always been memes. It's always been like pieces. That's mostly how I've interacted with like One Piece over the years. Like towards the rest of it, considering that there's only so much of it that I know from an external perspective.
From via osmosis, where you're absorbing a lot of key
Literally,
elements through like Reddit posts and memes.
Seeing how it's gone over the past 11 years, it's like, oh yeah, no,
it's inevitable. You already know what's happening, but it doesn't spoil the adventure. It doesn't spoil the journey.
It's going to be the context. It's going to be like the gravitas of like all of the events that I know are going to happen, but it's still always the underlying context that I'm always missing. That's going to be how it like how it evolves and like how it like pushes forward on that end. It's like, I'm definitely going to be curious, and I'm going to consume it one day, eventually. It's just the fact that it is like the One Piece anime / manga is going to be the 4th in line in terms of content, as to like where it's like how many different renditions of One Piece did it take for you to actually finally jump into the main story proper? And it's like, One Piece was my 4th option.
It's
the manga was my 4th. Oh my lord!
I'm sure in like 2030 we'll get some adaptation that is to your liking, and you can consume it in that manner. And I'm pretty sure the series is going to keep on going at least until then. If Oda says that he's entering the last quarter or the last like 10% of the story, it means he's going to be writing for at least another 6 or 7 years.
Oh yeah.
Like
he's not going to be exact about it. It's like he's going to be generally vague. It's like, this is about the last-ish part of my story, which will be concluded soon-ish. It's just, god damn it, is this where I go? Is this where I bait myself? And it's like, yeah. I'm so curious. Yep. It's such an enigma of a franchise to that point. Because I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see like how they line up the rest of it. But like for something as large as this is, and how they're going to even have the opportunity to conclude it. Like it's not in the same vein, not in the same vein as Evangelion, where it's just kind of like, it's like, how do you wrap up something with that amount of time and that amount of like rough edges to a point where it's satisfying? It's just like, it's kind of crazy. Like I'm really curious to see like how One Piece moves forward, because even though like we still can't see the ending, it's still like a ways away.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Oda's cooking, and I'm gonna let him cook. All I know is that I hope I can see the end of One Piece before the end of my lifespan, which is likely, provided I'm going to live at least another 5 years. So my odds are pretty good right now.
Yeah, I don't think the seas will rise and give like Section 2 an East Blue and a Grand Line in our lifetimes. We know the seas are rising.
Set sail.
But we are going to have the opportunity to go and find our own treasures on the Christ.
Wow.
Cool. What would that Grand Line be? Like I don't, probably across the Pacific.
Anyways, we got to get our ships out there, and we're going to go find the One Piece, because it is real.
Yep, as the fishing has been teaching us over the past couple of years or so, especially like when we were able to go and set sail on our own. There's only so much we can do, but yeah, no. It was a fun time. I'm glad I'm having as much fun with this series as I am, but there's only so much we can go, and we're just going to have to wait and see how the rest of the adaptation leads on, and what the general consensus of it is going to be. If it kind of like keeps the momentum that it's got going, which is hard to say since it all got released in one batch. But at least beyond that, will it be something that garners enough favor to like do another season? And if it does or doesn't, that's probably fine. But at the very least, like from the first episode alone, I could definitely see like people on their own, like getting into One Piece as a whole, just because of this adaptation.
And that's all that I could ask for. Just having more people join the community is always good news. Having a variety of pieces of a variety of adaptations where you have the choice in how you want to get into the series, also good. And in future, there may still be another adaptation on its way. So, never count it out. And if not, we can always just move on to the next of the Shonen Big Three.
Oh, good God. We've got the Japanese like Bleach, and I can't remember if there was a Japanese Naruto live action adaptation, but no, I think we're good. I think we're good.
Until the next adaptation.